friends and welcome. Usually we talk all things vegan, but I thought I'd switch things up a little bit, and today we're going to talk things that are not vegan. Surprisingly not vegan. Hi, I'm Val from Very Vegan Val, and I live in the shit show we call the United States of America. All that to be said that the products that I'm talking about are not vegan in the United States of America. Where you live, they may or may not be. Check your labels, do your research. I also want to be clear that I'm not here to shame you for accidentally or unknowingly ingesting products that weren't vegan. It has happened to all of us. This video is just meant to be educational, and it is not made for you to give yourself a hard time. The rabbit hole that inspired this whole video is this product right here. I'm going to put two images up. One of these is vegan and one of these is not. Can you tell which one? They look very similar. They're both the same brand, Planters. They're both salted, and both contain Mr. Peanut's brag about containing 7 grams of plant-based protein per serving. But like we'll talk about a little bit later on in the video, don't let the term plant-based lull you into a false sense of security. One of these products is not vegan. Do you know which one? It's the dry roasted variety, obviously. Although they just call the peanuts salted, there are actually a handful of different flavorings and seasonings in them, as well as gelatin, which is used to adhere the seasonings to the nut. Gelatin, if you don't know, is made of the skin, bone, and connective tissue of animals. Now, one thing I noticed that was different about the packaging of both of these is the kosher certification. You can see the salted peanuts here, which just contain salt, oil, and peanuts, have a U in a circle, which means that the Orthodox Union has certified it as being kosher. The dry roasted salted peanuts just has a K, no circle around it. My understanding is that's kind of like the company itself saying like, hey man, it's kosher, but they haven't actually certified it as being kosher. And peanuts aren't the only thing that fall victim to added gelatin. Many breakfast cereals also contain gelatin. Of course, there are those that have marshmallows in them, like Lucky Charms. And if you're not aware, marshmallows do contain gelatin. But there's other ones that might not be so obvious. Let's play this game again, this time with cereal. I'm putting up an image of 2 Kellogg's cereals, both of them frosted. One of them has gelatin, the other one does not. All right, I'm gonna put the reveal here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Frosted Flakes do not contain gelatin. Frosted Mini Wheats do. Why? I have no idea. It kind of seems dumb. Moving on. In the past, I've gone to restaurants where the only thing on the menu I could eat was fries. Not in the very recent past, because I'm not really a people pleaser that goes places I can't eat anymore. But it has happened. Now, at McDonald's, fries aren't even an option. And yes, Europeans, Canadians, Australians, I know, your fries are vegan. It is our fries that are the problem. McDonald's fries in the United States contain an ingredient that they refer to as beef flavoring. They introduced this ingredient into their fries once they stopped frying them in lard, sort of to get the same lard flavor, but while saying they fried them in vegetable fats. The fact that it's there, I think, is kind of a result of trying to be deceptive to begin with. The other interesting thing is McDonald's has not been very transparent about if their beef flavoring actually has beef in it. We know it has milk in it and wheat, because they're required to disclose those as major allergens, but they've been very cagey as to whether or not their flavorings actually contain beef. And in case you're wondering, their hash browns also have this same beef flavoring. I used to think the only vegan thing you could get at McDonald's was the apple pie, but turns out that's not vegan either. We'll talk about that later. Now, you may be surprised that in the United States, the term plant-based does not mean vegan. In fact, it doesn't mean anything. There is no standard legal definition as to what plant-based is, meaning that to an extent, companies are left to their own discretion to decide if the term plant-based applies to their product or not. And there are plenty of companies that use it in a way that, well, I wouldn't. like this plant-based burrito that contains egg and cheese, and this plant-based pepperoni pizza that also contains real mozzarella cheese. However, there seems to be no bigger offender than Morningstar, which routinely marks their products as plant-based, even though many of them contain egg whites. By the way, does anyone else remember when Morningstar said they would be fully vegan by 2021? If you are vegan, you're probably aware of this one, but if you're not vegan, you might not be. Margarine is likely not vegan. Margarine was not developed as a plant-based alternative to butter, but rather as a cost-saving measure. And in fact, the original margarines were actually kind of the opposite of plant-based. Back when margarines were first made, they were made entirely of animal fats, like lard. It wasn't until around the Great Depression that they switched the processes involved to make margarines made of plant-based oils. Now, I don't think you're going to be finding any lard in your margarine these days, but make sure you read the label closely because you will find milk-based products like whey and casein. In more recent history, in 2023, the FDA released guidance on how to label plant-based milks. And controversially, they greenlighted using the term milk. It was a major blow to the dairy industry, who had been fighting for over a decade to prevent non-dairy sources from using the term milk, claiming that customers would find it confusing when in fact they were not buying cow lactation. And by the way, the FDA surveyed thousands of people to determine if it was true. And yeah, it turns out when people buy oat milk, they know they're not buying cow lactation. And in fact, they're intentionally not buying cow lactation. Anyway, since the dairy industry is super concerned with clarity in labeling, I thought they might want to look back on some of their own labeling choices. Back in the day, the dairy industry lobbied really hard to define the term non-dairy as meaning only a little bit of dairy. That's right, products that are labeled as non-dairy can actually include up to 0.5% of milk, which I'm sure has never confused anybody. Go ahead to the grocery store and find a bottle of non-dairy creamer. You'll likely find an ingredient called caseinate in the ingredients, which is milk protein. And if you are looking for a creamer without milk in it, look for the term dairy-free, not non-dairy. So glad it's not confusing. Let's play another game of which one's vegan. Here we have 2 bottles of grapefruit juice, which I think we should be able to assume are both vegan, but one of them is not. We have a Tropicana and an Ocean Spray. I'll give you a little bit of a hint. They both have food coloring in them, but different food coloring. So Ocean Spray uses beta-carotene, which is found in things like carrots and squash to give them their orangey color, and commercially is extracted from seaweed. Tropicana uses carmine, it's a coloring that has been made since the Middle Ages, and it is made from the cochineal insect. On labels, it might be called carmine, cochineal, or red food dye additive number 120. Yes, red food dye additive number 120. It's less common these days, but you can still sometimes find it in ketchup, sorbet, and even things like packed cherries. Have you ever wondered if basil was vegan? Or garlic? Me neither. Turns out food manufacturers like to put milk in everything. Let's take a look at this bottle of basil paste from Garden Gourmet. Now, maybe I'm naive, but in my imagination, this tube should pretty much just contain basil. Here's the list of ingredients, and you can see sort of in the middle there, tucked in, the ingredient whey, which is of course milk protein. I can just imagine someone's well-meaning auntie making a little dish for their nephew with a dairy allergy, making sure not to use butter, making sure not to put cheese in it, only to be let down by the fact that the tube of basil they used secretly had whey. I'm not sure how many other brands of herb pastes actually do put milk into them, but I checked all of them at Garden Gourmet, and 8 out of the 13 different pastes they make contain milk. Oh boy! It feels like ages ago now that I mentioned that McDonald's apple pies weren't vegan. We've gone through so much insanity since then. But no worries, let's bring it back to somewhere that's a bit more reasonable and talk about human hair and goose feathers in your bread. That's right, guys. I'm talking about L-cysteine, which may also be labeled in food as a dough conditioner. Basically, what a dough conditioner does is modifies the texture of baked goods and it's pretty much only used on an industrial scale. Now, most L-cysteine is derived from duck and goose feathers or hog hair. However, it can and sometimes even is made from human hair. Lots of store-bought bagels and breads, and yes, apple pies from McDonald's, as well as bagels from Dunkin' Donuts, contain L-cysteine. Now, there are vegan ways to produce L-cysteine, but it is more expensive and so less likely to be used. Because L-cysteine is not always clearly labeled, I think one of the best ways to avoid it is to shop at mom and pop bakeries when possible. All right, guys, one last surprisingly not vegan item. All right, which one is it, guys? Diet Coke? Diet Pepsi? One of these is not vegan. Have I already blown your mind? Okay, it's Diet Pepsi. And the reason that Diet Pepsi isn't vegan is, I don't know. Pepsi won't tell us. They have just stated that Pepsi is suitable for vegetarians and not for vegans. Other Pepsi sodas are okay for vegans, and they will not tell us why Diet Pepsi is not. Like, what? What animal products are you secretly putting in Diet Pepsi, and why? And how is it okay for you to just not say what it is? I get that legally they say it's proprietary, but how is it okay? I don't get it. People deserve to know what they're consuming. I need to stop. Like, this rabbit hole has been fascinating and disturbing and kind of disgusting and not great for my mental sanity. What a crazy world we live in, where peanuts and basil might not be vegan, where non-dairy means some dairy, and where we still sometimes put insects in our juice. And I really shouldn't go down any more rabbit holes, but what else? What am I missing, guys? What products or items were you most surprised to find out weren't vegan? And if you liked this video, please subscribe. Usually we do videos that are more about cooking, but without any feathers or whey. Until next time, guys.